but they went after Lululemon because women were wearing their yoga pants without any underwear, so they didn't want a panty line, and then all the petrochemicals. And then you have these skin-tight clothing that we have lymph nodes behind our knees. We have lymph nodes at our ankles. When men wear tight ties, we have lymph nodes here. We have lymph nodes all over our body. And this tight clothing is stagnating our lymph. We should be wearing like Yves Saint Laurent togas, goddess togas, and move out of these tight clothing.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health. And now here is our host and producer, Hilda Labrada Gore.
Hey, Hilda here. Estrogen-mimicking chemicals lead to hormonal imbalances for men, women, and children. Where are they coming from? And what makes us susceptible to their effects? What steps can we take to avoid them in the first place and the dysregulation and illness that comes with exposure to them? This is episode 544, and our guest today is Patricia Luccardi. She is a thermography practitioner and an educator who focuses on the serious health risks that we face from environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors. Patricia points out today how plastic, pesticides, and other chemicals can lead to PCOS, fibroids, and breast cancer for women, man boobs for men, and brain fog in our children. She gives specific tips and protocols today, including Lugol's iodine, going braless and without sunscreen, for avoiding the estrogen-mimicking chemicals all around us, and for shoring up our health naturally. There's advice for men, women, and children in today's episode, and she discusses also, by the way, why thermography is superior to mammography when it comes to early detection of breast cancer. Before we get into the conversation, I want to invite you to become a member of the Weston A. Price Foundation. It hardly costs a thing, and it supports our important work of education, research, and activism. It's like $40 for the year, and you can even get a discount on that by using the code POD10. So go to westonaprice.org right now, click on Why Join or Become a Member, and pay $30 knowing that you're investing in the health of your friends and loved ones. Anyone who hears the podcast, anyone who gets the journal, you are going to benefit them as well. By the way, this year in particular, because the Weston A. Price Foundation is celebrating its 25th anniversary, you will be entered to win a Wise Traditions friendly prize by becoming a member this year. So again, go to westonaprice.org and click on the Become a Member button, use the code POD10, and welcome to the family. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Patricia.
Thank you for having me. I am so honored. Thank you. I've been following you guys for years.
We are thrilled to have you here because more and more people are becoming aware of the toxins in their environment and in their food that are changing their makeup and leading to hormonal imbalance. Can you talk to us a little bit about the toxic soup that we're swimming in, so to speak?
Well, to kind of preference it, I've been a thermographer for 13 years. I have a private practice in Manhattan, and thermography is picking up the heat on the body, particularly the breast. And estrogen, there's a lot of estrogens out there. Women have their own estrogens, but we're seeing estrogens coming from petrochemicals and, all the plastics and everything. And they're not tested on routine hormone testing unless they're doing an environmental study or an environmental toxicity. But how it shows up in thermography in the black and white scale that looks like a black and white photograph, there's the color scale, the rainbow that looks like this is thermographic imaging.
Mm-hmm.
In the gray scale, like the black and white, classically, estrogen will look like leopard spots. And we're seeing it on men, we're seeing it on young teenagers, and we're seeing it on particularly boys. So it really is becoming shocking because this has been my expertise for the last 13 years, is actually getting this estrogen dominance down through using sulforaphane from the broccoli seed and cruciferous complete, and using the natural plant-based nutrients that comes from the brasses family. But anyway, go ahead and ask me some more questions.
Yes, I want to explore those natural remedies shortly, but first I want to talk a little bit more about the problem. So, if I'm understanding you correctly, there are estrogens and hormones in some of the plastics that we use, whether it's even leggings for women that are made from plastic bottles, recycled plastic bottles, or drinking water out of a plastic water bottle, or even Invisalign, right?
Yes, Invisalign. Well, it's interesting because Susan G. Komen from the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, that was actually created by a petrochemical company. And it was called the British Imperial Company. And it went on to become AstraZeneca. And they were touting the BPA, and they have been shown that BPA is a link to breast cancer. And they have denounced it for years. And you really haven't seen too many pink ribbons the last couple of years. But what happened at Duke University, they had test tubes with breast cancer cells in it. And the breast cancer cells started proliferating. They were like, what's going on? The BPA was leaching from it, making the breast cancer cells proliferate. So there is a link. There's absolutely a link. And they have gone to the bottom of the ocean, to the top of the Himalayas, and there are these estrogen chemicals everywhere. They're everywhere.
Even in sunscreen, right? I think I interviewed Elizabeth Plord, who talked about how she was seeing the estrogenation, for lack of a better word, of men, of surfers in particular, who were slathering their bodies with sunscreen, and then their testosterone was low, and they didn't put two and two together.
Interesting. I've seen men coming to me that are covered completely like a leopard in leopard spots of estrogen, completely covered like a leopard.
And this is what you see when you take the thermographic image of the body, right?
A lot of companies that do thermography, they don't use the grayscale. It's called the inverse grayscale. It looks like a black and white photograph. And 60% of the findings in there, we see vascular patterns and such as that lymphatic backup. And then we'll talk about root canals and Invisalign. But classically, heat spots of estrogen will come up looking like mottling or leopard spots or what I call little pigeon feet around. But as we'll get to the way that we can detox this, if a woman is on a protocol and she is compliant, we see huge changes in 6 months. But there was a woman who wrote a book called Breast, and I can't remember her name, but she and her daughter, they kind of went into this. They didn't touch anything plastic for 2 weeks, nothing. They went to the butcher. They didn't touch anything. They didn't drink anything. And yet their body burden dropped almost in half. So there's ways to get it out of the body.
Yes, I'm glad that you said that, because I think prevention, what do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So instead of trying to mitigate things after the fact, after the exposure, what if right now we made some different choices? And let's just give people a little more of a framework of where you're coming from. You said you've been in this business for the past 13 years. You've been doing thermography on people. Why would you say thermography is preferable over a mammography, for example, for women to have some early detection of breast cancer, say?
Great question. Well, when you go to school, you study anatomy and physiology, don't just study anatomy. And right now with the breast cancer industry, which it is an industry, our breasts are monetized. And now 1 in 7 women are getting breast cancer. No one's talking about it. But mammography is looking for an anatomical structure. An ultrasound is looking for an anatomical structure, even if it's tiny, tiny, tiny. And an MRI is looking for something. It has to be something they can see. They can't see heat. Thermography is looking at heat. So all pathological processes start in heat. So if it's found on a mammogram, an MRI, or an ultrasound, it's been there for a long time in the stages of cells replicating, and it's what's metabolically active. Now, there are fast-growing tumors, and this was covered by insurance until 1987. And mammography has saved a lot of women's lives because that's all they've been given. But what they said in 1987, they said, well, thermography has too many false negatives. Well, because they can't see it under their techniques that they're using. So 10 years later, the cancer came up in the same spot. So there are other countries, and actually the studies on mammograms 25 and 30-year studies by Journal of American Medicine and British Medical Journal. They all show that the harm outweighs the good. Now, I even have a picture of it on my desktop of the New York Times saying mammograms are dangerous. But, it comes in and it goes out. But they've been phased out in Switzerland.
Interesting. So the way I see it, tell me if you think this is right, Patricia, is that why should I get a mammogram when they're going to irradiate my breast, which can only lead to more issues? I usually try to avoid radiation to the best of my ability. I have EMF harmonizers and I, wear an anti-EMF hoodie when I fly and things like that. So I'm always thinking along those lines that it does more harm than good. Is my thinking faulty or is there something to it?
I think there's something to it. They are advanced ultrasounds and they can see through density. It can see through cyst. It can see through calcification. We'll talk about dense breast in a minute. And there's no harm. There's no radiation. So we need to bring in safer environmentally ways of screening the body because, women who have large breasts or small breasts and they're being squeezed and radiated, they can't get under the armpit. And we're seeing a lot of cancer in the outer quadrants, with lymph node involvement, which we'll talk about how bras could be impacting that too. QT scan, that's what it is, the QT scan. But there's only 5 in the country now, but I think they're going to expand. But we're on the cutting edge right now of so much new technology coming through. But at the same time, breast cancer is touching the lives of younger women. And I had a woman from Long Island. Long Island is famous for having Cancer Alley. Actually, it was 2 women. They had cancer in their 20s. They're 20 years old. Now, it usually stays in that stages of metabolically active for 8 to 10 years. That means they were getting breast cancer as young teenagers. That's so unacceptable. Why are we not talking about this?
Yeah. And so why was it called Cancer Alley? What do they suspect was at play there?
Oh, because of the potato farming. It has shallow water out there. And then there was a lot of stuff coming from Stony Brook. A lot of children around the area were getting cancer. And there was strontium-90 that was coming from one of their towers or one of their reactors out there. And honestly, I thought that there would be more, awareness out there because those potato farms have now turned a lot into vineyards. But I have a map of Long Island on how much cancer is out there.
Oh my gosh, it's so alarming. So let's go back to something you said a moment ago, Patricia, about how our bras could be affecting our lymph flow and leading to some issues.
Absolutely. There was a book written about 10 years ago by Sidney Ross Singer. He's a medical anthropologist. He went around the world and he looked at bras, he looked at breast cancer, and he looked at lymphatic backup. In 1931, Dr. John Mayo of the Mayo Clinic, he said that bras put women at risk of stagnant lymph with the potential of breast cancer. They have known this since 1931. Those bras that were so structured in the 50s with those tight, those little pointed breasts,
Yes.
actually had a patent as a risk for breast cancer on it. So think about where this is just bras alone, but where the underwire starts at the sternum, where there is actually a lymph node that goes into the digestion, into the liver, and that it ends under the armpit. So many women wear those bras all day long. They take them off before they go to bed at night. There's no way for that lymph to move. So day in and day out and day in, that stagnant lymph, that debris, those environmental estrogens are being pointed at the breast. So now there are less structured bras. But if the lift is in the strap, if you want to have the lift, you get a sports bra that you can move the strap. But anything that's going to be holding that outer quadrant of the breast is stagnating the lymphatic system.
So are you saying the sports bra is preferable to obviously one with an underwire?
Oh, underwires are completely like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And they're not, listen, those wires are not lifting a woman up in space. It is the strap that is lifting. It is not magically doing that. But the thing that's so crazy, this is great. This was last April, a group of midwives in Iran. They are the first to pull a lawsuit on the breast cancer and bra industry.
Oh, they put a lawsuit.
Yeah, they have a lawsuit on it. But now there's bras like Blue Canoe and Pact, PACT, and even Jockey. If you get it online, there's a lot of natural fibers out there moving away from those bras. And when you really think about it, the whole bra industry is run by men. Gray industry is run by men. And a woman is not going to put on her bra that morning thinking about how she's going to have sex later that night because, that's not her mind. She wants to be comfortable. But I have had 3 women who slept in their bras. They all have breast cancer.
No.
So if a woman's going to wear a bra, sometimes you have to wear it because of school or whatever you teach or whatever you do, you have work. When you get home at night, take it off so the breast can relax. Our breasts are pendulous. They run a degree or 2 cooler and let them flow, fluff them up a little bit, move them, do some dry brushing, get on the rebounder, but don't go to bed and then take your bra off because there's no way of that lymph moving while we sleep.
Oh, you're right. You take it off, you immediately get horizontal and there's nothing flowing there. You need to do something to get the blood flowing, the lymphatic system going there.
It's interesting. I work with a few doctors in the city. One is Dr. Loretta Friedman, who is a lymphatic specialist. And I've been going to the Integrative Healthcare Symposium for years. And I will tell you, all the nutraceutical companies out there, they're doing a great job. There's a pill for this, there's a pill for that, whatever. No one is addressing the lymphatic system. It is our immune system. And you think of these tight clothes. There was actually I don't know if it was a lawsuit, but they went after Lululemon because women were wearing their yoga pants without any underwear because they didn't want a panty line and all the petrochemicals. And then you have these skin tight clothing that we have lymph nodes behind our knees. We have lymph nodes at our ankles. When men wear tight ties, we have lymph nodes here. We have lymph nodes all over our body. And this tight clothing is stagnating our lymph. We should be wearing like Yves Saint Laurent togas, goddess togas, and move out of these tight clothing.
Yes. And I've had the privilege of traveling the world, kind of following in the footsteps of Dr. Price from time to time. The people I see, the indigenous people, have the kind of clothing you're describing, not the tight stuff. I'm talking about flowing robes among the Maasai, and then also in Ethiopia. So I met some tribes along the Omo Valley, and they had the most loose, comfortable clothing. The women are wearing no kind of brasiers at all. And I wonder if studies have been done comparing what the clothing does to us.
That is in Dress to Kill, the link between bras and breast cancer. That's what Sidney Ross Singer wrote about. And he found that the women, and particularly in these tribes and all, they don't have breast issues. But it's interesting because in France, they did a 15-year study showing that women who wore bras, our breasts sagged because we're laying them on a ledge every day, not using our ligaments and tendons. And then they always show us these pendulous breasts from women in Africa, that might, nurse several children. But they're giving us false information. But actually, they found that was a 15-year study that by not using our ligaments and tendons, our breasts will sag.
Coming up, Patricia tells us how the estrogen-mimicking chemicals in a young man who was using Invisalign affected his health and, yes, led him to develop gynecomastia, basically man boobs.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
A quick shout out to Optimal Carnivore. Organ meats are some of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And the founders of Optimal Carnivore are well aware of this. They also know that finding high-quality organ meats can be challenging, and it's also hard to make them tasty. So they started sourcing the highest quality organ meats they could find in New Zealand, freeze-drying them, and putting them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. These are 100% grass-fed organ meats from New Zealand, one of the most pristine places on the planet. And so their products are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished and free of hormones, pesticides, antibiotics, and GMOs. And since our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal, Optimal Carnivore has created a unique blend of 9 different organs in their grass-fed organ complex. It's a powerful combination that includes beef liver, brain, thymus, heart, kidney, spleen, pancreas, lung, and gallbladder. It's a real nose-to-tail solution. And because Optimal Carnivore freeze-dries the organ meats, they're able to preserve the nutritional value of each organ meat. Plus, they plant 1 tree for every product sold, which is great for the environment. They currently have a grass-fed organ complex that I already mentioned, a grass-fed bone marrow, a grass-fed liver, and a brain-nourished product. So go to amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code Weston10 at checkout to save 10% on all purchases. Again, that's amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and the code Weston10. And Lumerim. You may already be purifying your water, purifying your air, but what about your light? Not only do most light bulbs today emit harsh flicker and EMF and unnatural, isolated peaks in blue light, they're also not great at doing what a light is intended for, helping you see. And even most full-spectrum lights on the market today, they also lack a critical piece of the light spectrum, infrared energy. They're nothing at all like sunlight in constitution, and your body knows it. Enhancing people's lives and the spaces that they live in since it was first created in Finland over 80 years ago, Chromolux is the original neodymium glass full-spectrum light bulb, a unique non-LED light source that actually simulates sunlight by purifying the visible light spectrum. And unlike those ordinary, harsh, and frankly uninspiring light bulbs that most of us have in our homes, the Chromolux full-spectrum lamp creates a soothing yet vibrant interior space you'll love to live, work, and play under. The light of Chromolux is equal parts healthy and beautiful, and as nourishing and colorfully pure as sunlight. And while these beautiful bulbs have little blue light and are naturally low in flicker, the real magic lies in their special neodymium glass composition, which purifies light and creates better contrast and definition between color tones and textures. The benefits of Chromolux full spectrum light are twofold. You're giving your body real analog light while also enhancing your environment and uplifting your spirit. So you see better, you experience more vibrant colors, and you feel better. Experiencing more an uplifted environment, let's say. Chromolux light truly embodies the essence of seeing life in full color. And see better, feel better has been Lumerim's motto for over 60 years, and for good reason. Unlike harsh artificial lighting that can strain the eyes and dampen the spirit, the natural light of Chromolux does as all light should, provide a pure, vibrant light to help you see better and feel better. If you want to feel the uplifting difference a simple light bulb can make, give Chromolux light bulbs a try. Use the code WISE for 10% off your first order at healthlighting.com. Again, it's the code WISE for 10% off your first order at healthlighting.com. This is Hoda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Tradition. Fascinating. You're right. We get the impression, oh, they don't wear bras, so then everything turns really kind of like straight and saggy, when in fact, by not wearing bras, they're activating the ligaments and tendons that can keep the breast perkier.
Correct.
Patricia, let's talk about Invisalign now. You mentioned it earlier. Tell me the story of that young boy that you saw. What was the effect of the Invisalign on his body?
Well, he came to me. He was referred by a doctor. He had gynecomastia. He had little nodules underneath his nipples because his breasts were starting to develop. And in the black and white scale, again, it looked like estrogen spots all around his mouth. And he had the thickest drainage I have ever seen on any of the images I've ever taken over 13 years. It had to be a 2-inch, maybe it was a good 1-inch line of drainage coming down his neck into his chest. He had leopard spots all over his chest, and he was growing boobs.
How old was he?
18. So I've been collecting images of CPAPs, night guards, Invisaligns, and they're all draining. Now, there are some new products out there like Eva Vinyl that if a person's going to wear a night guard at night or something, they can be safer because everything are petrochemicals. And one of the biological dentists I work with, they said, by law, those companies don't have to tell you what's in their products. But plastic is plastic. And these are also petrochemicals and foreign estrogens. Plastic has estrogens in it.
And the reason this is problematic for both men and women and children, obviously, is because this leads to what you're seeing in those images, Patricia, is depicting hormonal imbalance. And so what's the problem with that?
Well, there are good estrogens and then there's bad estrogens. But, what it is, it's disrupting. First of all, just think about these bad estrogens. They park on our receptor sites. We have receptor sites all over our body. And they don't allow our own hormones to signal correctly. So they're like Velcro. And we can do things like sulforaphane, that's on the radar right now, to flush those receptor sites. Children can take it because it's just functional food, is no contraindications. But once those are flushed off, and it's on the radar of many, many people out there. But once it goes into the bloodstream, into the brain, we don't know what to do with it. But right now we're getting great results with flushing those receptor sites. But the PFAS, that has a shelf life from 2 to 4 years. And it's really important to get that stuff out because this is not just affecting the human kingdom. We've been seeing male fish becoming female for years. Look at the Chesapeake Bay. Litters are becoming smaller. Amphibians, it is a gender bender game out there. They found these alligators in Lake Acopa in Florida, female alligators growing penises. Very toxic lake. So it is around the world that we're seeing this gender dysphoria from all these foreign estrogens. If anybody saw that movie, The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman, I mean, I'm aging myself, but he said, his mentor said, son, the future is in plastics. Well, now, 50, 60 years later, plastics are everywhere. You can't get away from it. And they found not the Invisalign, the dental floss has those forever hormones in it.
Oh.
Dentistry is very toxic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we could have a whole episode on that. And I do want to talk to you next about root canals. You said these also play a role in this estrogen dominance and this hormonal imbalance that we have.
Correct. I'm not sure if it's hormonal imbalance, but there is we know from the work of Dr. Weston Price, there is a link between oral health and the rest of our body. And being that the first thing we ask when a patient comes in, do you have root canals? Do you wear a night guard, Invisalign? Do you have amalgams? Do you have bleeding gums? Because what happens, particularly with the root canals, we see the drainage going down the neck. And I have 3, for whatever reason, if it's a lymph pathway, 3 went right down into the right nipple of the woman, right into the right nipple. So root canals, I always say, are they in the back? Could you have them pulled out? Because, when you start messing around with that, it's like, buying a good used car. It's a lot of money. But root canals, and it is the longest chapter in my book, is on root canals and oral health and breast health.
It's all linked, isn't it?
Yes. And there is a movie called Root Cause. You probably know that. That was, I'm going to say it, it's pun intended, yanked off Netflix within a week. And it was the truth on root canals. You can see it on YouTube and you can see it on Amazon. And I saw it with a dentist. He said, that's exactly why I don't do root canals.
Why would it be censored, do you think, Patricia?
Because it's the cash cow of dentistry. And so are Invisaligns. So, for those listeners out there, when you go to a dentist, let it be a biological dentist because they're using, things in the mouth that are environmentally safe. They're not using toxic fillers and this and that. And our mouth is connected to our immune system because it goes right into the lymph system. It drains, down the neck and into the lymphatic system.
Wow. So let's say there's a listener right now who's like, okay, I'm going to get my root canals pulled, or I'm so happy I haven't had any, but I know I have these yoga pants that are full of plastic and estrogen disrupting chemicals and so forth. And they're going to start doing their best to prevent exposure to things that could affect their hormonal balance. Talk to me a little bit about what we can do if we think we've already got a heavy load. You talked about flushing the receptors. How can we do that?
Well, there is a product, sulforaphane. It comes from the broccoli seed. And for many years, Johns Hopkins, they did a lot of studies on the broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts had a way of inhibiting breast cancer cells. But now they found that the seeds have more efficacy than the actual sprouts do. And there are many companies out there, Designs for Health, Metagenics, are working with sulforaphane. The company that I work with directly is a seed grower out of Kentucky. and it's Vitalica plus the physician's formula. And it's 600 milligrams of pure sulforaphane. They have been studied for many years with that company, with Johns Hopkins, and they called that actually, that particular product they have is the Brassus Osirius Hopkins. They named it the Brassus Osirius Hopkins because so much study was done with it. What it does, it flushes those receptor sites, flushes. And they actually have a 200 milligram. They got a 600 milligram and a 200 milligram. The 200 can be given to kids. They're being exposed to this stuff too. But what it does, it flushes those receptor sites, allowing our own hormones to signal correctly.
So, here at the Weston A. Price Foundation, we put a lot of emphasis on food, nutrient-dense food in particular. If we weren't going to buy those supplements, should we just eat more broccoli, for example?
Yeah, the cruciferous family, absolutely. Broccolis, Brussels sprouts, and kale. Kale's cruciferous, right? I know broccoli is. Broccoli and cauliflower.
Cauliflower. Yeah.
People choose to, to do their own broccoli sprouts and juice them. Green. Just think about if a mother was nursing her baby, making breast milk, what would make the best breast milk? It wouldn't be wings and beer. It'd be green things that are from nature, green, beautiful green, plant-based. And we're going to get a lot from there too. We are in an epidemic time. And I'd like to talk a little before we leave on dense breast and iodine.
Yeah, talk to me.
Okay. Well, first of all, I wrote a book called Thermography in the Fibrocystic and Dense Breast because I started seeing a lot of women come in with dense breast. They were overdiagnosed, overbiopsied. But on a mammogram, a tumor cancer is white. And on connective tissue and dense breast, the tissue is white. Nothing wrong with having dense breast. It just means there's more connective and glandular tissue. So there's so many false negatives, false positives on mammograms and and mammograms. But they will not let a woman just get an ultrasound without having a mammogram, even though they know that it could be as low as a 23% sensitivity. But thermography has no issue with density because it's looking at heat. Doesn't just see through that. So there has been studies that show that you do ultrasound with thermography with dense breast, and it could be as high as thermography with ultrasound with dense breast could be as high as a 97% sensitivity. Of course, there's always, variance in everything. But yes, dense-breasted women, mammography is just not the best screening for it because they cannot see through the density. But they'll offer what's called 3D tomosynthesis that delivers about 38% more radiation. And it still has a 40% failure rate.
Oh, so it's more radiation, but less clarity with the results.
Well, you get a little more. You get, as opposed to 60% failure rate, you get a 40% failure rate.
I still don't like those numbers, Patricia.
But anyway, I have been, I always have my patients, I ask them if they take iodine and I'm doing a presentation next month on the link between breast cancer and iodine deficiency. And we became deficient as a nation between the 60s and the 70s. I told people to stop having table salt and because of high blood pressure. And they took out the iodine out of our salt and they put bromide. And that disrupts the system, not allowing the thyroid to uptake the iodine. So iodine is necessary to keep estrogen from becoming dysregulated. So now we're living in such dysregulation of estrogen. That's why we have such estrogen dominance. But there is a direct link to what happened in the 60s and 70s when we became deficient. And it was taken out of the bread, it was taken out of the milk, and we had bromide. We started seeing the dovetailing of the endocrine disorders, breast cancer, thyroid cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, and ovarian cancer. The ovaries store most of the iodine, then it's the thyroid, then it's the breast. So now what we're seeing is 550,000 hysterectomies a year from heavy bleeding. Polycystic ovarian syndrome. One woman came to me a few weeks ago. Her fibroids were so big that they had to chop them up and take them out. I said, well, are you having problems with your thyroid? She says, yes, I have hypothyroid. I said, do you have cysts in your breast? Yes, I do. So what happens to the breast? The breast gets cysts. They can become hard nodules. They become hyperplastic. It becomes breast cancer. So you can take Lugol solution, Lugol's iodine and, paint it on the breast. We need iodine. Even children, it's in the prenatal vitamin. If there's not enough iodine, there's creatism and retardation. The more iodine, the higher IQ. Now in Japan, they have very high IQ there. Have you ever noticed that? They have very low breast cancer because their food includes a lot of sea vegetables. So there's 3 kinds of iodine: potassium iodide, sodium iodide, and then molecular iodine, which comes from seaweed. So our breasts thrive on this. So all these endocrine disorders started dovetailing during this time period. But guess what? They can't patent an element. And we didn't hear about iodine anymore. They put it on the back shelf. They scared people. I still have doctors today that go, oh, I don't know, 3%. Well, the RDA said you can have 1%, 1 milligram of iodine. That's not enough to do anything. That's like telling a person not to take vitamin D. You can't have it. But it starts at 3 milligram and it can go up to 50. But if you go back to the old 1920s, the old PDF, was it the PDF files? They said people were taking up to 100 milligrams.
Oh. How did they scare them? What did they tell them would happen if they took in too much iodine?
Just took it away. I was afraid of iodine when I started. I didn't
You
know.
were?
Yeah, because I didn't know anything about it. Because you think of iodine from radioactive iodine, because that's where you hear about iodine when you get a PET scan or something radioactive.
Oh.
But yet it's interesting, if there's like Fukushima, what did they do? They passed out iodine lollipops.
Interesting.
Whether it's Chernobyl, whatever, iodine lollipops.
Oh, this is so fascinating. I feel like there are trends in emphases on different vitamins and minerals. Like I feel like magnesium and zinc are really big right now. But you're right, not many people talk about iodine.
And I'm from New York, so in New York State, we can't test. But there are tests that you can do, a 24-hour urine test, and they can test for different halides. But we also have the halide disruptors that are challenging our iodine: fluoride, chlorine, bromide, and percolates that are coming from, jet fuel and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. So fluoride and chlorine we often find in our water, both in our tap water and our swimming pools. Where would the percolates be found?
Coming up from jet streams.
Oh, okay. So if we fly a lot or live near an airport, or even if we're under an airport route, right?
I mean, jets are flying everywhere. I mean, I don't know. Listen, our air is very polluted right now. We can't, if we want to talk about chemtrails, that's a whole nother
I know.
discussion. But the percolates and these can be tested for. There are all kinds of tests right now that will test for all these foreign toxicities in our body. It's really becoming a full-time job trying to stay healthy and stay.
I would say so. And so you've given us some tools to consider. What do you think about just sweating it out? You talked about dry brushing earlier. Would that also help us kind of flush those estrogen receptors?
Yes, absolutely. And sweating is excellent, And a lot of people don't sweat because our lymph system is stagnant, and doing saunas or even taking a really, really hot bath and then covering up with a blanket and sweating a little bit like that. You do that when you have a fever, you take a hot bath and then sweat it out. But sweating's excellent.
So Patricia, as we start to wrap up, I want to ask you, what do you say to the person who's like, you are seeing hormone disrupting chemicals under every rock. You're obviously overly concerned about this. What would you say to the person who thinks you're making much ado about nothing?
Well, I'm not, because I'm seeing younger and younger women with breast cancer, and I have 2 young daughters. So as the heart of a mother, and I am a mama bear, because I can say now because I'm a grandmother, I want to protect women's breast. I mean, it's heartbreaking to have a 27-year-old woman come in with 2 young children with breast cancer. So, yes, be diligent about what our breasts like. Our breasts thrive on sulforaphane. Go out there and eat that broccoli and everything. Take the bra off, massage your breast. Be mindful for how much alcohol you consume. And this is interesting. That coffee will turn into estrogen in 45 minutes.
I'd never heard that. What?
Even mainstream gynecology, if you have tender breast, sometimes lumpy breast, and you're drinking coffee, they said, get off coffee. It will regulate in about 2 or 3 months. I started drinking so much espresso because there's a new place in my little village. And I'm down there drinking espresso almost every day. I got a little lump in my breast and it started becoming tender. Well, I went off the coffee and it disappeared after about 3 weeks.
Whoa. Well, you've given us lots of tips and tools. I'm really excited to get this episode out. But I want to pose to you now, Patricia, the question I love to pose at the end of the show. If the listener could just do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
Think positive. Think about the good beauty in life, but consider doing a detox. There's all kinds of detoxes out there. There's liver detoxes. There's every nutraceutical company has a detox out there. Can I name some names of some companies? I particularly like Standard Process. They have a 10-day and a 28-day. And the reason I like Standard Process because they're one of the few that are 100% organic. They're really organic. And you can't, unless you're a practitioner, you can't really buy from them. You have to go, but so many practitioners sell it online. But they're powdered, and then you take the things for bowel movements and the minerals and everything. But they've shown the toxicity report, what this can draw out of the body, and then spring is coming up, doing juice fast or something like that. But be mindful of just seeing if we can find ways of pulling these toxins out of the body.
Wow, that's wonderful. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for your time today. It has been a pleasure. On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, Patricia, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Our guest today was Patricia Luccardi. You can visit her website, patricialuccardi.com, to learn more. And I'm Hilda Labrador, the host and producer of this podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for today's episode, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a letter to the editor from our Spring 2025 Wise Traditions Journal. I have a Yorkie dog that is 13 years old. Since he was little, he has had coughing, gagging, and spitting up sessions due to a trachea problem. I don't really take him to a vet because other than that first rabies vaccine, I don't vaccinate. But the few times I have taken him to different vets, they have all told me that this trachea issue is very common with Yorkies. In other words, I should just live with it. As he has been getting older, the cough has become more frequent and seemed much harder on him. I was getting concerned and I wondered how I could continue to let him suffer. What could I do? Because he would gag and almost throw up. After listening for many years and because it seemed to be getting worse, I decided to give a drug, a steroid to him. It may have helped a little bit, but not much. And drugs are never my first choice. So then I tried homeopathy, which did help slightly, but didn't solve the problem. As a side note, Chewy had had real food his whole life, with the meat usually raw. I felt like that has kept him healthy, except for this aggravating bad cough. It was hard to watch him have an episode, and lo and behold, a friend told me about a brand of raw dog food that has organ meats in it. As a nutritionist and a WAPF chapter leader, I became very excited because of the added organs. To make a long story short, I bought and tried the dog food, and almost immediately, my dog's cough was gone. Yes, gone. In 2 weeks' time, I have heard him cough without gagging 2 to 3 times, lasting about 2 seconds instead of a full minute. Previously, he had been coughing like 10 to 20 times a day. And now the only time I hear him cough is after drinking water, and even that is short-lived. It is like a miracle. It took me a few days to completely realize it, but this food has changed his life. It's the organs in it, I'm sure of it. Here are the ingredients: unwashed green beef tripe, beef lungs, beef bone, beef liver, beef trachea, and beef heart. Would it have helped him if the beef trachea wasn't in the mix? I don't know. I just know he's like a different dog, and I am so very thankful. It's made me think about upping my own organ meats. I smelled it once and it was kind of icky, so I just don't smell it anymore. The owner says it's the tripe that gives it that smell. The name of the dog food, by the way, is Raw Advantage, located in Iowa. I just had the owner come and speak at my WAPF meeting because I want to share my story with every pet owner. I'm not a dealer, just a very satisfied customer. This is a letter from Elaine from Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Iowa. If you want to learn more from people who've had amazing stories to tell, and just to get the benefit of the many experts that we know in the Weston A. Price Foundation, become a member. I mentioned it earlier, but I forgot to mention that one of the perks is getting the journal. You'll get to read lovely letters like this one, but also really nutrient-dense information about sulfur in the diet or vaccines. And Sally has her caustic commentary column where you can learn about the latest trends, what's being said out there, and what the truth is about the matter. It's an amazing journal, and it comes as a hard copy to your home via snail mail. This doesn't happen very often, but it's something you're going to enjoy cover to cover. So go to westonaprice.org, click on the Become a Member button, join using the code POD10, and you're in. You'll be part of the family. You can be a part of behind-the-scenes podcasts and more. And thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well, and remember to keep your feet on the ground and your face to the sun.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.